What would you do if your project partners tried to exploit you for free labor? Kick you out and take all the credit? In today's story, the protagonist's response is a masterclass in how to turn the tables. This is the only revenge story I have. But it's a good one. Because I laid the groundwork for my victory months in advance. It makes me happy every time I think of it. A couple of years ago, when I was 18, I finished my 4-year degree in game development. The final year was split into 2 parts, a 4-month internship and a 4-month test of skill project that you design yourself to prove you're a capable developer. I'd started my search for an internship too late, so my options were limited. And I landed at a very small game studio run by just 2 women. Let's call them Brenda and Chloe. They were both specialists in the visual side of things, 3D modeling and 2D art like textures and graphics. Neither of them was a programmer, so they relied on a rotating cast of interns to do all the coding for them. This was immediately disappointing, as it meant I'd have no experienced programmer to guide me or learn from. But it was my only option. What was cool was their location. They were in an incubator, which is a large office building that rents out single desks for a low monthly fee instead of entire floors. It's perfect for startups and one-person companies. As a cherry on top, this incubator specialized in game companies. So it was a fantastic place to make contacts and meet people in the industry. At first, things were fun. They had a project they'd already started and an idea of what they wanted, a game for kids that used augmented reality. AR is notoriously difficult to program. And to make matters worse, they refused to use existing AR systems from other companies because it would cost too much. So, for 3 of my 4 months there, my entire job was to build a custom AR system from the very ground up. It was an incredibly tough challenge. I had no help other than Stack Overflow, because all the other developers in the incubator were busy with their own projects. But, as they say, the best way to learn programming is to just jump in the deep end and start Googling. Eventually, I did it. I built a functioning AR system that worked with 2D image recognition, which was perfect for what they wanted. But when I finished, it turned out they had no game design document, no concrete plan for what they actually wanted in the game. They didn't even have a to-do list on a whiteboard. So I spent my last month building things like inventory systems, only to be told after the fact that it wasn't what they wanted. They'd just say, "We need an inventory system," without specifying any of the details. It was a complete waste of my time. My internship ended with a feeling of deep frustration. Brenda and Chloe had been condescending and abusive in their language the whole time. And being a self-described fat nerd with no self-confidence, I never stood up for myself. 5 months later, I had my degree. I decided to take a year, using my savings, to try and make my own games and see if I could make a go of it. I rented my own desk back at that same game dev incubator and started brainstorming ideas. This is where things get interesting. Brenda and Chloe held a firm belief that if you were a technical person, you couldn't possibly be creative. They saw programmers like me as mere tools, there to execute their grand vision. This was infuriating for 2 reasons. First, just because I love programming doesn't mean I can't imagine worlds and stories. Second, game artists and game programmers are 2 sides of the same coin. They are disciplines of equal importance. This revealed their greatest fatal flaw: they saw programmers not as creative partners, but as disposable tools. An arrogance that would ultimately cost them everything. One day, they approached my desk. "Hey, Leo," Brenda said. "Are you busy?" "I'm just thinking about what kind of game I want to make," I replied. "Chloe, come over." "He's not busy," she called out. Chloe walked over. "Hi Leo. Could you help us out with something?" Sure. What can I do for you?" "We need you to make a menu in Unity for the AR system you made for us," Brenda said. Now, I'll admit, the system I built during my internship wasn't the easiest to use. It had a lot of settings and required a series of specific steps to get it working. They wanted me to simplify it, even though I had already written an extensive manual explaining everything. But I had learned so much in the months since my internship, and I was confident I could dramatically improve the system. This was a golden opportunity. The code from my internship belonged to them. But if I rebuilt the system using the same architectural concepts but with all new code, it would be legally mine. "Yeah. All right," I said. "I can rework the system and make it more user-friendly." "Nice," Chloe said. "Let us know when you're finished." I spent the next month rebuilding my AR system from the ground up. The new version was a massive leap forward. And when I was done, it shared only about 10% of the code with the old system. Critically, I also changed the standard script template in my Unity engine. Every time I created a new code file, it automatically inserted a header with my name and my copyright information. Timestamped. This was my proof. I went over to their desks to show it off. This too. 0 version has better tracking in all light conditions. It can cover more angles. It needs less detail to recognize an image. And it now has a very user-friendly UI with helpful tooltips. Brenda and Chloe were ecstatic. They were so happy, in fact, that they asked me to join their project as a partner. "Yeah, I would love to join," I said, feeling a surge of validation. "I'll even give you a discount on the AR system." Chloe got a smug look on her face. "Yeah. We won't be paying you. The code was already ours. And you just improved it. Besides, we didn't sign a contract or anything. Just be happy with the opportunity we just gave you. And if you didn't intern with us, you wouldn't be here to begin with." It was the kind of line you'd hear from the worst kind of choosing beggars. The ones who think opportunity is a currency that pays your rent. I was stunned. "Are you serious? I spent a whole month working on this." "Yeah. But you'll make plenty with the project," Brenda added dismissively. There was nothing I could do right then. I felt cornered. And maybe it was a fear of missing out. But I sucked it up and agreed to join their project. But I learned my lesson: always have a contract. And boy, did I draw one up. For the main project contract, I included a clause giving me a right to 25% of the finished product's income, pretty standard stuff. But I didn't trust them one bit. So I also drew up a separate general conditions contract, which was basically the terms and policies for working with my one-man studio. It had all the basic rights. But it also included 2 very special clauses that make me laugh to this day. Clause 1, any and all code developed by me belonged to me in perpetuity. It could not be copied, modified, or used in any way without my express permission. And under no condition could I be forced to release the source code files. The fine for breaching this was €1,000 per script file, and my new AR system had over 20 scripts. Clause 2. If I were to be fired from a shared project for any reason, I was entitled to be paid €50 for every hour I had spent working on that project. No exceptions. Brenda and Chloe signed both contracts without even reading them. They were too busy celebrating their cleverness to bother with the details. They didn't even have a contract for me to sign in return. At that moment, as they scribbled their signatures without a second thought, they were completely unaware that the ink from their pens was sealing the fate of their entire company. The next 6 months were a nightmare. I learned very quickly that my role was to sit down, shut up, and make whatever they wanted. They didn't want my input on anything. Even when they had ideas that were dumb, impractical, or technically impossible, I wasn't allowed to protest or suggest alternatives. I was constantly having to go back and rework finished components because they kept adding new functionality. The project was sinking, and so was my morale. Finally, I had enough. I went over to their desks to complain. I am wasting my time because you two can't make up your minds and commit to a final idea. I need a final design document to work from. They just scoffed. It's called feature creep, Brenda said condescendingly. And a real game developer should know how to deal with that. A real developer does know how to deal with it. As one commenter on my story later put it, the way we deal with that is by saying 2 simple words: pay me. They dismissed me. And later that day, I received an email. Dearest Leo, we regret to inform you that our partnership is not working out and we have decided to let you go from the project. We hope there aren't any hard feelings. In their minds, they were cutting a loose end. In reality, they had just pulled the pin on a grenade they themselves had placed in their own laps. I was angry. But then I remembered my clauses. A slow, mean grin spread across my face. I walked over to their desks. Hey guys. I read your email. That sucks. But I understand. We just have different creative ideas and weren't on the same page. Chloe looked relieved. We're so happy you understand. Are you sure there are no hard feelings? No. Not at all, I said, layering on the false sincerity. I learned a lot and had fun. I can just recycle the components I built to make other games. Just remember, Brenda added with a stern look, you can't do anything similar to our game. She was referring to a competition clause in my old internship contract. Oh yeah. No worries. I smiled. I've got something else in mind. I returned to my desk, opened my email, and sent them an invoice. I had meticulously logged all my hours. The invoice was for 26 weeks. 40 hours per week. At €50 an hour. Total cost, €52. 000. They freaked out. The color drained from their faces as they stared at the number on the screen. They had nowhere near that kind of money. They were both working second jobs just to stay afloat and were trying to save up to start families. There is no way we're paying this, Chloe shrieked, storming over to my desk. We understand some compensation is warranted. But this is insane. I lost 6 months of income on this project, I said calmly, holding up a copy of the general conditions contract they had signed. And you agreed to these terms? I pointed directly to Clause 2. But fine. I'll take it to court. And we'll see what a judge has to say. The court proceedings took about 8 months. In the meantime, I decided that running a one-man game studio was too hard and enrolled in university to get a degree in IT, planning to do game development on the side. The judge ruled that I was completely in the right, thanks to my detailed work logs and the copyright lines embedded in every single script file. However, the judge also said that asking for the full amount would utterly bankrupt Brenda and Chloe. So the final award was reduced. I would get €20, 000, plus reimbursement for all my legal costs, for a grand total of about €35, 000. For Brenda and Chloe, it was a massive blow. Brenda had to sell her car to get the money and could no longer get a mortgage for the house she wanted to buy. Their professional reputation was destroyed. I made sure everyone at the incubator knew exactly how they had tried to screw me over. And soon, nobody there would even talk to them. They were forced to give up their desks and work from home. My old college also got the full story, ensuring they would never get another intern from there again. About a year later, I got a call from them. It was the last time I ever heard from them. They explained that one of their hard drives had failed and they didn't have any backups, a testament to their professionalism. They were asking me for the code I had made for the project. I just laughed into the phone. A real, hearty laugh. I pointed them to Clause 1 of the general conditions. You can't claim the code, I said, savoring every word. It's in the contract. In fact, you can't be working with anything I made because you don't have my permission. If you were, you'd owe me another €20, 000 for the breach. But tell you what, I'll sell it to you. There was a hopeful pause. Well, how much do you want? Brenda asked, her voice strained. I let the silence hang for a moment before delivering the final blow. €52, 000. Silence on the other end of the phone. Then a soft click. As of now, their studio is out of business. I'm about to graduate next year with no student debt. I lost weight, gained a ton of self-confidence. And every time I remember this story, I feel powerful. I stood up for myself. And it paid off. This story is a powerful lesson: always know your worth. And always get it in writing. Underestimating the person you're trying to exploit can lead to your own spectacular downfall. So, let me ask you, what's the most outrageous thing a boss or client has ever asked you to do? Fourth, the opportunity.